Welcome to the Catholic Sobriety Podcast, the go-to resource for women seeking to have a deeper understanding of the role alcohol plays in their lives. Women who are looking to drink less or not at all for any reason. I am your host, Christy Walker. I'm a wife, mom, and a joy-filled Catholic, and I am the Catholic Sobriety Coach, and I am so glad you're here. Today's episode is one I've been especially looking forward to because it's a story that speaks right to the heart of what we do here on the Catholic Sobriety Podcast. Honest conversations about struggle, healing, and most of all, the mercy of God. So many of us appear put together. On the outside, we look like things are going pretty well, but quietly, we're carrying battles that no one sees. My guest today understands that tension deeply. His journey takes us through the pain of addiction, the breaking point of rehab, and ultimately, the profound encounter with Christ that changed everything. What I love about his story is that it doesn't stop with sobriety. It's about the restoration of faith, family, and purpose, and how God's grace can reach into even the darkest places and bring new life. With that, let me introduce him properly. Stephen M. Bell is a Catholic convert, musician, husband, and father of two. After years of struggling with alcoholism, even while serving as a church music leader, he found freedom through Christ and the sacraments. Now, over 3 years sober, he shares his journey in his memoir, Uncomfortable Truth, Faith, Failure, Redemption, to encourage others that healing and hope are absolutely, positively possible. Welcome, Stephen. I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you, Christy. Thank you for having me and letting me share my story. I think what you're doing here is a beautiful thing, and it's what we're called to do, I believe, here on this earth, and you're expressing your charity here, and it's just a great thing. So I'm blessed to be here at this moment.
Well, thank you so much for it and for sharing your story. It's so important that we share these stories, especially within our Catholic community, because I know that so many times we suffer silently thinking that maybe we're just too broken or too sinful to be able to receive God's mercy. And that is just not true. You and I are both examples of that. So with that, why don't we just go ahead and dive into your story? If you could maybe tell us what drinking looked like over the years, how it evolved, and then when you first sensed that something needed to change.
Yeah, believe it or not, drinking was introduced into my life at a very early age. I remember one time sitting in my bell-bottom pants holding a Budweiser when I was 4 years old while my parents were having a party. Because,
Wow.
And yeah, but really I didn't drink a whole lot. I mean, through my teenage years, like a lot of teenagers do, I grew up in a small town. We'd meet out in the country with keg parties and, till the deputies would bust us and we'd all run off. But when I got married, which I got married at the age of 20, and I really started drinking just beer there, but it became daily, nightly. There wasn't a day I didn't go without it. And a lot of the reasons why I needed it to sleep, you hear these excuses, but eventually I was raised Church of Christ, and I broke from that. Me and the family did, and we became Lutheran. In fact, I got my son baptized in the Lutheran church. And at the time I was in a Christian rock band, and which is kind of funny in itself because we lived in this Christian rock band was trying to live like an actual rock band with the drinking. Yeah, we drink everywhere we went. One time we did a charity, and out of all the bands, which was secular from rock to country and stuff, this Christian band that I was in was probably the most partying band of us all. So it was kind of, I guess you can call that ironic. Anyway, so I joined this Lutheran church and I become the full-time music leader. And I did this role for over a decade. And the culture of this church is drinking. It's like even confirmation. We'd have keg parties after the kids would get confirmed and have cookouts. I mean, we hung out all the time. And it was a tight-knit family, but it consisted of drinking constantly. And my journey through all this, being a music leader, especially for so long, is that you get high praise for one, because the church at the time, that the Lutheran church here in Lubbock, became the fastest growing church in the district. And that was due to the music. And of course, we had a great dynamic pastor who I still love today and talk to. He's great. But it becomes a stress to constantly perform weekend after weekend, trying to live up to expectations. And of course, at the time too, I'm making a music CD called Refugee. But during this time as well, I kind of gotten deep into alcoholism after my mother died. She died suddenly. And 2 weeks later, my sister died. And that was just all of a sudden, I mean, just out of the blue. Both of them were pretty much out of the blue. But anyway, that took a turning point on me to where I was hitting hard liquor. I was hitting wine. And then it got to the point to where I couldn't even perform on a Sunday without having vodka up there with me on the altar. I had it in a water bottle. On the outside, I looked put together. I looked like, I was functioning just fine, but no, I was crumbling. In fact, I do 2 services, a morning service and the early morning service, and then to go back at 11. But during a little break where everybody's at Sunday school, me and one of my band members would go into my garage and we'd drink beers. And of course, I'd hit the hard liquor before we'd go and do the 11 o'clock service. And I just carry that up there with me like everything was normal. But then it also got so heavy that I couldn't go without it. My anxiety was so high that I would drink to cure my anxiety, which now hindsight, we know that alcohol contributes to that anxiety. But there were times I just got desperate. I'd call into work and I would have to start drinking at 8, 9 in the morning. One time I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning because something was happening and I didn't understand it. So at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was over there drinking, and my wife and my kids are watching this. And my wife, in my memoir, she's really the hero that shows up. Of course, I almost lost her, almost lost everything, but she was the hero. She helped me go through all this, but I went through detox 4 times. I never did stay the 30 days. I thought, I don't need the 30 days. I just need to get it out of my system and I'll be good. And the detoxes were, I should have stayed the 30 days, but I never thought I needed that because I'd just go right back to the drinking. But anyway, I ended up converting to Catholicism because of my 16-year-old son. My 16-year-old son, when we were Lutherans, he loved to study theology. So he went through, he was just curious about other denominations, Methodist, Church of Christ, which our whole family is besides us now. He even looked at Islam. Then he looked at Catholicism. One day I come home and he says, "Dad, I think we're supposed to be Catholic." Me being brought up the way I was, it's like, you realize that the Pope is the Antichrist, don't you? And that the Catholic is like the Satan's little cult here on earth. And he's like, "No, Dad, you need to look at church history. And he showed me the scripture of Matthew 16, where the keys of the kingdom or Peter became the Pope." And that did get me to thinking. I was like, being brought up this whole time and studying Bible studies and all, like I say, being a music leader, we always did Bible studies, but that was never anything that we honed in on. So I thought, let me hone in on that a little bit. Well, long story short, I did a year of looking at apologetics, watching YouTube videos of Trent Horn, Jimmy Aitken, the Catholic Truth was one of my first ones, which I'll be going on his podcast, I think next week or so, to talk about my conversion story. But he played a pivotal role in me converting. So after all this, and then now I'm debating my son, who decides, no, maybe we're better Lutheran. And then he and I are debating. I'm over here taking a Catholic stance all of a sudden, and he's taking a Lutheran stance. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? But then he got Trent Horn's book, I can't remember, the Why We're Catholic or whatever. He read that book, and then boom, he was sold. And so we went through OCIA, back then it was RCIA. And anyway, but I was still going through the motions. I was still drinking. I'd quit the church, which was a big deal, because my wife's like, no, you have to quit that because it's just taking its toll on you and it's eating you up. And she was right. So I did. I gave it up. In fact, I gave up music, period. I was like, I'm done.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I didn't touch my guitar, didn't write a song, didn't sing. I was just going through the motions, RCIA, going to mass. But it's still, something was still off. And this cause I'd already hit that point of no return. You can't do it on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, my wife decided that enough was enough. It was time. The kids couldn't see me like this anymore. She couldn't see me like this anymore. And it got to the breaking point to where she was done. She wanted to leave and get out of it because she'd been through enough. And I didn't blame her. I went on what they call a walkabout. I just kind of took off, listened to some music, prayed to one of the saints, Saint Talbot, who was a alcoholic who turned his life over to God and overcame. And so I decided, well, let me go to rehab just to get out of her hair. Pretty much that's what I was going to. I just wanted to let her have her space. So I thought, I'm going to go to rehab and do this. Well, I go to rehab and I'm going through all the withdrawals. They gave me the medicine, what they call Librium. You always know people in their own Librium because they have this little funny walk.
Oh.
But anyway, I was on that, but they pulled me out of rehab or out of detox a little too soon. And so I was still withdrawing. And for those of you who have went through withdrawal, it is not a great experience. I mean, your heart rate is up, your blood pressure is up. You need to drink. You need to take that edge off. So I was about to leave rehab again. I said, I'm out of here. I went to the counselor. I said, I'm done with this place. It's like a prison to me. I can't handle it. Well, she ended up calling my wife. And my wife gets on the phone and she talks me down. So I go to my room and I lost all hope. I never felt loneliness like this in my life. I just never felt the anguish, the isolation. And I literally cried out to God. I was like, God, is this my purgatory? Are you real? Can you stop this? And Christy, I tell you, it was like a peace and calm came over me like I had never felt. It literally, it's even hard to explain, just an overwhelming sense of peace. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. So I walked back to the counselor and I told her, hey, I'm staying. I'm going to do this whole 30 days and we're going to knock it out. And I did. I went in fact, it was a rebirth because I was actually done. My last day of rehab was my birthday. And so,
wow.
Yeah, so I don't know, maybe designed by God, but either way, it was a new rebirth for me in a way. But at the rehab, talking to my counselor, she wanted me to do music again because she knew that was part of my identity.
Mhm.
So I got my wife to bring up my guitar, and I wrote a song, and I played it for the counselor, and she loved it so much she wanted me to play it for groups. So I go to group and I play it, and it was one of those moments that were special to me. I mean, looking back on it, it's not one of the best songs I've written, but again, it'd been a couple of years before I even grabbed a guitar, but it hit home for everybody because of the lyrics. And so that brought me back into who I am and what God called me to do. And that journey is music. And now it's to get my story out so others know that God does meet you in those dark places.
Mhm.
And if he can pull me out of it, and as long as you're breathing, he will pull you out of it. You just have to accept it and reach out to him. They're there. The saints are there. Mother Mary, God, they're all there pulling for you.
Mhm.
And so now that's my new goal, is to help people get out of those dark spots in life, because they can grab you. And everybody's story is different. But I wrote my memoir not because my story is unique, but I wrote it because it's not unique. I know there's others just like me out there who are just afraid to come out and say it. Like my other sister died probably 2 years after my uh, older sister died. And hers was addiction. But she was one of those who never accepted that she was addicted. And so she ended up with cirrhosis of the liver. And she, like I say, she died 2 years later. I don't want other people to have that ending to their story, because that didn't have to be her ending. And then after rehab, one of my best friends, Jason, who I talk about in my memoir, he had drinking issues and he had been to rehab a few times, but we stopped communicating after my rehab. But I wish I would have reached out to him, because he ended up passing away about a year after my rehab from an overdose. And I have the regret that I didn't reach him sooner, because I feel like he would still be with us. And he never got that moment of sobriety. And I know he loved the Lord. He loved Christ. I mean, he was a great guy. He just got caught up in some stuff that I didn't ever think he would, but temptation can be strong, and it took him. It took him from a great family. And so I wish I would have had that opportunity to talk to him again. So now I'm not wasting a moment. I want others to hear the story just so they know, because life's fast. We got to live this life to do what God has called us to do, and that's to be a servant, just like Christ was. We're called for charity, and that's what we need to do. And so what I'm blessed with was my curse. And my curse was drinking and temptations like that. But now this curse that's turned into a blessing is to reach out to others. And so that's my goal. And that's my story in a small nutshell.
Wow. And what a story it is. Thank you so much for sharing so deeply and so honestly. And first and foremost, just my condolences on all of those significant losses that you suffered. And those it can just take a moment that really just pushes us over the edge, right? Like things might be going along where it's like, maybe you notice an uptick in amount and frequency, and maybe you're drinking more than you like, but you're still kind of in that realm of like, I could do something. Like I could get a hold of it if I just like reach out or figure it out. But then there's like a pivotal change in our life, whether that's loss or abandonment, or, it's a trauma of some kind, or it can even just be a life stage change. And that can push some of us over the line into this really dark place. And I just appreciate your honesty of your story, because you're right. Like our stories are different, but there's like this common thread that flows throughout those of us who have suffered addiction or just had a very strong disordered attachment, even if it hasn't gone over into that realm of quote unquote addiction, right?
Yeah.
There's just these tendencies that are so common within that. So when you share your story, people, maybe they didn't experience it exactly the same way, but they can see themselves in your journey toward sobriety, in your journey toward, God, in your journey toward the Catholic faith. And I just think also I'm a mom of boys, and I just think it's so beautiful that your son just dove into wanting to learn as much as he could about all the different faiths and really read himself into the Catholic Church and brought you guys along with him.
Yeah.
I think that is just a gift and a grace for sure.
Amen.
Wow. That just really got me because I'm like, I don't know. My kids they've always been raised Catholic and we're pretty faithful, but I'm like, I don't know if they ask themselves those questions or, dive into those things outside of their religion classes and things like that. So I think that's so beautiful as well. And then your mission. You said that you wanted people to know that God will pull you out of those dark places. And I think sometimes we just get so overcome thinking, this is never going to get better. I am not going to be able to do this. And maybe you can't do it on your own, but God is with you. And all of us as Christians, by virtue of our baptism, are given these spiritual gifts. And we just have to turn our face to him, right? We just have to ask for that increase. I just need you, Lord. And sometimes it takes being in that pit of despair to get us to cry out to him. I've been there before. I have my own story about that I've told on the podcast before. But crying out like that is just us turning to him, even when we have no other words to say. Maybe we don't have all the things, all the beautiful, poetic prayer type things. It's just this guttural ask. And the fact that, as you were telling that story, as I was on edge of being in that despair, being in that, having that anxiety, wanting to just be done with it because it was so hard. But then you crying out and then that peace that just washed over you. And I hope everyone who's listening has experienced that at least once in their life. I have, and it's just so powerful. That's supernatural peace. That's peace beyond all understanding. And so that is available to all of us, and the Lord wants to give that to us. So even in that desolation, even when we're in those moments or seasons even of desolation, consolations will come. Sometimes they're small, sometimes they're big, but they're there, and that's God's way of just showing us how much he loves us and pours into us. And lastly, obviously your wife, wow, just being there, supporting you, loving you, being able to love you and yet set a boundary, set that boundary. I'm done. I love you, but we can't watch this anymore. Did her saying that, was that the thing that just kind of that light bulb moment, or that thing that kind of got you to be okay, this is serious. This time, it has to be this time.
Yes, because she had never spoken like that before. And when she said those words to me, that it hit like a rock. It actually shocked me in a way, which I don't know why it shocked me looking back now. It's of course that was coming. Look at me, but no, it hit hard. And that's was wow. Because I started dating my wife when she was 13 and I was 14. And we got married when she was 2 weeks out of high school. So she's all I know. All the women in my life have played a huge role from my mother to my sisters and to my wife. They have really been my rocks. And then when she told me that, uh, then I also see my boys like going home, even that night, because we met at a restaurant, we talked about that, and going home to just look at my boys saying, this could be gone.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing? Like it's a wake up call for sure. And she set her mark. In fact, it's the new song I'm writing, she set her mark and I crossed that line. And so now I got to find my way back over to that line to meet her where I'm supposed to be and where she said it. I mean, bless her heart. I mean, a lot of women would have given up a long time ago.
Right.
A lot of them, but no, she stayed there. And yes, you're correct. That was the wake up call for sure.
Yeah. What a gift. That's so beautiful and such a testament to the sacrament of marriage. I think just that supernatural grace that we get from the sacrament probably helped empower her to take that step, even if she was afraid too of losing you or, losing everything, but knowing that she needed to do that. I know that I have a lot of listeners who don't necessarily struggle themselves with addiction, but they have people that they love so much that they're watching. And to hear that it's okay to set boundaries, it's good to take a stand because it protects you and protects your peace, but it could be the very thing that helps your loved one do what they need to do to get better.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Everybody has to have a boundary set.
Right now, alcohol feels like the only way that you can cope with the stress of motherhood, social pressures, and maybe even fit in with your group of friends. But you're starting to realize that it's leaving you feeling ashamed, disconnected, and maybe even out of control. Imagine if you could wake up each morning feeling at peace and proud of the choices that you're making and free from the pressure to drink, whether that's at home or in social settings. And that, my friend, is where my 5-day Sacred Sobriety Kickstart comes in. By the end of the 5 days, you will feel more peaceful and in control because you will have more clarity and confidence around your decisions to take it or leave it. You're also going to learn how to manage your mind in a way that is aligned with your faith. You will learn how to speak truth over yourself, and that will help you root out what's keeping you stuck. So check out my 5-day Sacred Sobriety Kickstart and gain the clarity you need to make the decision to take alcohol or leave it from a place of peace. You can visit my website, thecatholicsobrietycoach.com. I have a pop-up there, or just go to my show notes. Yeah, yes, for sure. The other thing, when you were talking about your mission, I think that that's something that we both, it took me 25 years to start talking about my story. I just went along, I went to AA for a couple of years. And then after that, it was just me and the Lord and me just kind of living life and trying to clean up the mess I made and build a life. My faith journey is completely, intertwined with my sobriety journey. I don't see how people can get and stay sober without God, but there are people that do that. But I think that, if faith is so important. You told me something and it totally resonated with me. I don't know if I wrote it down. Oh, you said sobriety gave you clarity, but faith gave you purpose. And I so relate to that because I'll say that about Alcoholics Anonymous. That helped me with my sobriety, change my mindset, figure it out. And maybe, I don't know if you went to AA, but Rehab, I'm sure was like that for you. And then it was actually my faith that kept me sober. Because people will say, how have you held on to it for that long? How did you keep saying no? And I tell them it's simply God. It's simply by God's grace.
Yes, and that's one of the aspects that I do like about AA is that it talks about that higher power. I mean, realistically, you have to have faith in that higher power, and which, of course, to you and I and a lot of your listeners, that's the God of the Catholic Church, Christ. The Christian God. That's us. Now, others have their own, and that's fine because it helps them. In fact, one of my friends is a big advocate of AA, but he's not a Christian, but he has a higher power in what he believes. And, I've never really knelt down to what he believes, but he has a higher power, and it works for him, and that's fine. But you're correct. It has to have that. You have to have that faith, something to believe in, something to live for, something that's a guiding force in your life. In my opinion, it'd be very difficult to do it without it. But sure, others do. And like I say, I'm not in their lives, but I think for people like me and you, that's just that's our DNA. That's who we are. And that's what we live and we strive for daily. Like I say, it's like air. You got to have it to live. And so that's the beautiful thing. And people also need to realize that none of this is just easy. It's not just
right
about it being easy. It's about the struggle. It's about the overcoming that desire that leads you on that bad path to sin. When you overcome this, that's part of our role of this human experience, is to get these challenges and overcome them, overcome temptations, whether it's pornography to drugs to worshiping money. All these things are here on this earth, and then Christ is, I can't remember who said this, but it's like your job is to conquer that in your life, to get to the next level. And once you do that, then you're meeting Christ also where you need to be. I mean, it's true. The struggling is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. And so when people feel like when people feel like they failed because they went back to drinking, yeah, you did, but that don't mean give up. That means try it again. It took me 4 times in rehab. I was in rehab with one guy who went 14 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but he's still trying, and that's what you got to do. You got to keep trying, and hopefully it sticks. Like I say, I'm 3.5 years sober now, and I won't say, oh, I'm never going to drink again, because I don't want to set myself up for failure like that. But I mean, I honestly believe I won't. Truthfully, I don't really have a desire anymore. It's I just don't. The desire is gone. But I never thought I'd get to this part in my life. I thought there would be no way that I could quit drinking. Yeah. And actually, I didn't want to. I enjoyed it because I thought it helped me. But then once you see what true sobriety is, then you're like, I never want to go back to that. I never want to touch that stuff again. And, but yeah, I guess the point of that is saying it's not easy and it's a struggle, but it is totally worth it, because you understand what it is. I'm sure a lot of your listeners do as well. And so it's a journey like everything else.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I appreciate that you mentioned how difficult the alcohol withdrawals were for you. Like I was blessed in that I didn't experience that, but I do know a lot of people that have had to go through that. And I've heard that it's one of the worst withdrawals you can go through. And if it's not done properly, for very heavy drinkers, if it's not done properly, like it could be very, very dangerous. And that's why they give you that medication that you were talking about to kind of help you through it.
Yeah, a buddy still gives me a hard time that I met in rehab, because he never went through withdrawal 1. but
Hmm.
he still had to go through it because he was a daily drinker. But some people, they just don't have that makeup in their DNA where they withdraw. But a lot of
Hmm.
us do. So yes, you're right. If somebody's out
Yeah.
there struggling, don't do it on your own because it can be very dangerous. In fact, they
Hmm.
still make fun of me today. Other friends like, when I saw you over there shaking with your bottle. Oh,
Oh,
like, yeah. Oh, you got to laugh now. I mean,
yeah.
but of course at the time it wasn't that funny, but it was but yeah, you're right. Don't do that on your own. It can be a struggle.
Yeah.
Some people
Yeah. But
hallucinate.
right. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that as well. So, but I think that what that illustrates is for like many of the women that I work with or clients that I have, they're not to that point. They're just noticing like alcohol is
Mm,
becoming a problem for them. They may be over drinking. They may be drinking every night and maybe drinking more than most every night. But at the same time, they still have it kind of all together. And so when you
mm,
stop drinking, or great start to reduce it, at least greatly reduce it, and then maybe come to the point where you decide that you want to stop drinking altogether because it's not serving you any longer. I think that just knowing it's going to be hard no matter where you're at if you have that attachment to it. Like if it's a stronghold in your life, it's not going to be easy wherever you're at on that spectrum. There's always going to be people that it's even harder for or have a more difficult, longer walk to go through. And there's people who can just decide on a Tuesday, I'm not going to drink anymore. And they never have the desire to drink again. And and it's
yeah.
good. So there's always going to be that spectrum, but it's about just continuing in that discomfort because that's where the growth is going to come. And in AA one time, this guy was talking, he was telling his story and how he had gone in and out, in and out, in and out. And the thing that helped him was he realized that he just looked at it like walking over a bed of coals. And he'd walk over that bed of coals, be like halfway there, and then have to go back and then have to do it again. So if you're going through it, just keep going because you'll get to the end eventually. Pretty soon, those cravings that are so intense in the beginning that you really have to manage your mind around, that you have to tell yourself, like, I gotta just talk back to my excuses. I just have to remind myself why I'm doing this. What is my why? And just keep going forward because pretty soon you're on the other side and everything might not be perfect, but it's a heck of a lot easier and it
Yeah.
just will keep getting easier. And, many people that I talk to, even it's interesting because I'll have women that come to me and they're like, I'm drinking every night. I only want to drink, on the weekends or maybe I want to reduce it. So I'm just having like one, like one big night out a month or whatever. So they're trying this. And a lot of what I do, even though I am a person that I had to like stop completely because
Mhm.
it was an addiction for me. A lot of the women that I work with are trying to decide, can I moderate and will it work for me? And is it worth it? And can I have peace about it? And it's interesting because often as they're going through the process of like, can I do this? How does this feel? We ask a lot of questions. A lot of them are like, you know what? It's really so hard. Like,
Yeah.
it's not worth it. And I feel like crap the next day, excuse my language, but I
Yeah,
just
you're right.
feel like trash and it's not worth it. And so I think that those of us who are unattached from it can look at it and say, like, it's so glorious out here on the other side. This freedom is just amazing. And it's so worth the struggle to get there. Um, Whatever that looks like for you, it's kind of like what you said about your friend. Like, you wish that you could have told him sooner because you went through it, you got healed, and you're like, I just want that for you too. And I feel like that's at the heart of what your mission is. That's at the heart of what my mission is. It's like we broke free from this. Now, that's not to say that Christy is perfect. I have my things and I am continually working, right? We have the flesh we battle with, the world and the enemy. So there's always things. But I can tell you that life on the other side of alcohol or any kind of substance addiction is so much better than anything you think that it's giving you.
Yes. Yeah. And my wife would still drink every now and then, go out with her friends and stuff. But now she's got to the point to where, oh, it's poison. She can't even, and she wasn't a heavy drinker at all by any means, but she just do that. But now she got to where even one drink makes her feel so bad in the mornings.
Yeah.
It's like, and in fact, that's a good motivator to stay sober. I remember my hangovers and I'm like, oh my God, I can wake up every morning and I'm like, oh, yeah, I feel fine. And, and that's something that's just a glorious feeling in itself because hangovers are the worst. My goodness.
They are.
And, you think about it, it's a poison. The science is showing it's a poison. No, amount of it is healthy for you, but it's such a normal in our society. We all know this. I mean, it's just, to me, it's one of the most dangerous drugs out there in the world, but it's everywhere you look. It's everywhere. So, but from what I understand from my son is that their generation are the ones getting off of the alcohol. It's almost becoming the new smoking. That's what they're telling me, which that's a great thing. And I hope that trend continues.
Yeah. Well, and I think it like my twins just went, they just graduated and all of that. And so we've had talks about, actually, I just did a podcast episode about like how to talk to your kids about alcohol. But it is one of those things where they're not like us, like having keg parties like every weekend or like doing all the things, the bonfires and that, like, they realize, whoa, this is not. And I love that. I love seeing that Gen Z and the other generation coming up after them are taking a look at it and being like, maybe not, that might not be for us. And the non-alcoholic beverage, whatever people, they're making so many more things. So there's so many more options. Like my husband, as younger, probably, I don't know if they're millennials and Gen Zs, probably in his office. And we did a Christmas party, and it was interesting to see how many of those younger people, younger than us, were having the non-alcoholic beers and things at this. We were at like this pub place for their party. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Because when 20 years ago, when I would go to his Christmas parties, everyone was just having a lot or having some. And I was kind of the person that didn't, which was fine. I was fine about it, but it's interesting to see it evolve, and it is so encouraging. And I agree. It's great that the science is starting to really come out instead of those silly magazine articles about how red wine is so good for you. Yeah. Blah, blah, blah. And I did an episode about that, how that's a lie. But instead of that, now we're seeing more and more people speaking out. The sober community is rising up in all different areas, whether that's coaching or counseling or influencers, just kind of coming out and saying, look, this isn't good for you. It's not healthy. And then there's also, which I love and nerd out over all the time, is the neuroscience behind it. And that just, to me, takes so much of the shame away. Like, I wish I had known that when I got sober, how alcohol was affecting my brain and why it was so hard for me to quit, why it was so hard for you to quit.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not because you're a weak person. You're like very accomplished and driven in so many areas of your life. But the way alcohol affects your genetic makeup, your DNA, your neurotransmitters is different than how it affects your wife. Or my husband will have a beer, every once in a while. It affects him differently. I look at him like, how can you just have one? And you're like, fine, that's so weird.
I'd love to have a drink. How's that possible?
I'm like, what? That's weird. But yeah, I love the way the tide is turning. And I agree with you. I hope that I hope in the future we will look at it like we do cigarettes, and cigarette smoking. It's just so interwoven into so many aspects. And, I'll just be watching a TV show and I'll hear somebody say, oh, I'm going to have a glass of wine to take the edge off. Like, it's just like, so a very small, like, sentence, but it's like that's going into our brains. And then we're like, oh, I need that to take the edge off, or, how am I going to take the edge off if I don't have it? And so it's all about just kind of reframing that, figuring out what fuels you, what feeds you, and you don't have to numb out of life. It's can be very difficult and raw, but it's also very beautiful to be able to fully experience not just the joys of life, but also the difficult parts of life.
Well, yeah, and it comes down to, I guess they quote, I guess it's an Einstein quote where they think about the definition of insanity, because, doing the same thing over and over, but getting the same results, but still doing it. Y'all know that saying, but to me, it's crazy how we'll take, say, one night of drinking. You have fun for maybe a couple hours, and then the next day you have a whole day of torment. It's kind of insane to think about, 2 hours of joy for a whole day of suffering the next day. It's just kind of, when you look at it that way, it's like, well,
yeah.
And I did that for years. That's insane.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I mean, sometimes I'll get headaches like from allergies or from the barometric pressure or whatever. And I wake up, and when I wake up like that, I'm like, oh my gosh, it kind of gives me that reminder of like what it was like to wake up with a hangover, only it was so much worse because then you have like dry mouth and the other stuff that goes along. Plus anxiety, plus what the heck did I do last night? Like who did I make mad this time? I don't know.
Yeah, who did I text? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so much better, for sure. But yeah, so it's been so great having you here, Stephen. I'm so thankful that you reached out to me, that you have this mission. I feel honored to be able to help you get the word out and share your message with others, which is really the Lord's message, right? I always say the Lord healed me, and now as a thank you to him, I just need to allow him to help and reach as many people as he wants. Like you said, it's our cross, but it's so beautiful because we can take that cross and help others carry theirs as well.
Yeah. You said that way better than I did. I called it a curse, but cross is the correct way to look at that. Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much. Why don't you go ahead and share? I have to say, Stephen shared a couple of his music. He has some YouTube videos, and it's beautiful. And then, of course, your book. So anything you want to share with my listeners, go ahead. And then I will also put links to the videos and anything else you mention in my show notes.
Okay. Yeah. You can link, really, my Facebook account right now can get you there. Give me a follow on that. And I have like clips that I make. It always lets you know when I have my new music out, and then has a link to my memoir, Uncomfortable Truth. Here, let me show. Faith, Failure, Redemption. It's on Amazon. It's actually on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, but Goodreads, but Amazon's the cheaper place if you want to go there. And just look for my name, Stephen M. Bell, and then some of my songs, you can type that into Spotify or Apple Music, whatever streaming service you have. But really, my website is Stephen M. Bell Music.com. memoir.com, which hopefully I'll have back up next week. And that'll have some of my blogs to where I discuss this or post articles. I got a few articles coming out in Catholic Exchange, and then also next week I'll be on the Catholic Truth to talk about my conversion journey. So follow him. But really, just connect with you on Facebook, and if you're interested in my full story, just go to Amazon and look that up, and have a read, get it on Kindle or whatever, and stuff. Like I say, it's just been a journey, and like I say, I'm be sharing this journey mostly on Facebook. But I appreciate you having me on, Christy. I appreciate you letting me have this opportunity to share the story, and I'm glad I found you on YouTube.
Yeah, I know. My YouTube, I'm still kind of building that. The Lord just says, like, share your voice, share your voice, share your voice. And it sounds like that's what he's told you to.
Yeah, and I'm glad we can do this thing together.
Yeah, me too. Well, I will look forward to talking to you again sometime, hopefully. And I just thank you so much for sharing your story and your hope and your experience with my listeners. And I know it's going to bless so many people.
Well, good. I hope so. That is my goal.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Catholic Sobriety Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I would invite you to share it with a friend who might also get value from it as well. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing. I am the Catholic Sobriety Coach, and if you would like to learn how to work with me or learn more about the coaching that I offer, visit my website, thecatholicsobrietycoach.com. Follow me on Instagram at the Catholic Sobriety Coach. I look forward to speaking to you next time. And remember, I am here for you. I am praying for you. You are not alone.